that takes away from their jumps, their live fire time, their time in the cockpit. We need to spend more time ensuring that we can protect the homeland and less time on pronoun training and the rest of this.
Does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 52, printed in House Report number 118-142, offered by Mr. Gates of Florida.
Pursuant to House Rule 583, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
There is a time in every debate where everything has been said, but not yet by everyone. And that may be where we are in the DEI debate, but what I bring to the House now is the most fulsome amendment to completely remove DEI from the DoD. And even if my amendment doesn't pass, I want my colleagues to know that this NDAA in the base bill takes a meat cleaver to DEI. And the amendments that we have adopted in the last round of voting have certainly ensured that DEI, regardless of the passage or not of my amendment, will not be a principal feature of our military service if this bill becomes law, and that would be a great thing for our military. That said, it's important to note that in the name of DEI, our military has done some pretty strange things. Secretary Austin, in his first act, ordered a 24-hour stand down so that everyone could reflect on their extremism. The reality is, even majority-minority units in the military found this divisive. They complained to my office, and certainly it did not create a more lethal force. Also, in the name of DEI, we've hired some rather strange people in the government. There's one DEI officer named Calissa Wing, and she actually, if you can believe this, worked in the DEI's department at DODOA, the education system within DoD, and she put out the following inclusive tweet. I'm so exhausted at these white folks in these professional development sessions. This lady actually had the caudacity to say that black people can be racist too.
The caudacity. Audacity and Caucasian, all right. They're getting real creative.
I had to stop the session and give Karen the business. This was the person that we had hired to create a more inclusive environment, and I think it's indicative of the inherently divisive culture that has permeated radical racial ideology. My amendment gives us the opportunity to pull it up by the root, and I hope my colleagues support it. I would add this final point before yielding back. We have standards in the military that allow the military to expel racists and white supremacists completely in the absence of DEI programs. We've had those standards in the military for quite some time. And so even if my amendment were to become law, I don't want anyone in the body to think that we would be stuck with people in the military that didn't meet long-standing, pre-existing standards of personal conduct. And with that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Virginia. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
I rise to claim the time in opposition to the amendment, and I yield 1.5 minutes to Mr. Horsford.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this amendment. Mr. Speaker, the previous speaker, the maker of this amendment, talked about being exhausting. This issue that he has brought before this body and the committee is exhausting. Just this week, the sponsor of this amendment called diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military a, quote, failed experiment. He has called it cancerous. Just this week, a senator from Alabama stated that it was his opinion that white nationalists are not necessarily racist and refused to denounce white nationalists serving in the military. All of this with the backdrop of the same senator holding up hundreds of military nominations, which is actively hurting our national security, something that this NDAA bill would address. To what end? The U.S. Marine Corps does not have a confirmed commandant as we speak. And yet, just an hour ago, on this very floor, one of the members on the other side of this body said his amendment, quote, had nothing to do whether colored people or black people can serve, unquote. Mr. Speaker, these comments show exactly why we need diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Every day, our military grows more diverse, more and more reflecting the diversity of our nation. This amendment does nothing to address the recruitment shortfalls that our services are facing, and instead it will only make it more difficult to recruit Americans on diverse backgrounds representing the true makeup of our nation. What are you so afraid of? Why do you keep bringing these divisive issues to the body of this floor? You are out of order. You are exhausting, Mr. Gates.
The gentleman is no longer recognized. The gentleman is no longer recognized. Woman from Virginia reserves.
I reserve.
Excuse me, a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
No, Mr. Speaker, I've made a point of order. You have to rule on the point of order.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
The gentleman has an obligation to address the chair, not other members. He did not do that. He was out of order, violating the decorum of the House.
The gentleman has not stated a proper point of order.
A parliamentary inquiry, then. I seek recognition to make a parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will state his parliamentary.
What is the
question.
parliamentary mechanism that requires an individual to address the chair? Because if it's not that, and we can address each other, let's do that for the rest of the debate.
I used to watch these joints and be like, man, they boring as hell. But then the more you watch them, it gets a little nasty. I'm mad right now that I ain't got no snacks. I should have some snacks. I'm gonna start bringing some chips down here, a little bit of juice. I got my water, but I need some snacks, something to while I listen to this.
The chair will not engage in this dialogue. Would the gentleman like to be recognized first?
I want to be recognized for a parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman is not recognized.
I'm not recognized for a parliamentary inquiry? I'm not recognized for a parliamentary inquiry?
The chair will not engage with the gentleman.
I have a parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will state his inquiry.
Will the chair encourage members to address the chair and rather than one another?
The chair encourages all members to address the chair and not one another.
Very well. I seek recognition.
Thank you. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr.
Can you be respectful? Can we have a debate?
Yeah.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Amendment.
And Mr. Speaker, the childish antics that we just observed indicate that we've got a lot of work to do, both in this House and the military, not to have radical racial ideology governing our discourse and governing the policy choices that we make in these bills. The policy choice that my amendment seeks to make ensures that we do not have the cancer of DEI harming our military. I would yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Florida.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
I would just like to remind people that whether you're white, black, brown, we all bleed the same. So to have this completely divisive ideology being pushed, to have members from across the aisle making it about race, when some of these members have not even served, is completely, to me, not only a foreign ideology, but I'd like to remind people, when you're getting shot at, okay? When my husband was shot in Afghanistan, do you think he was sitting there asking what color the person that was evacuating him was? Do you think he was sitting there wondering about diversity, equity, and inclusion? No, the only thing he cared about was making sure that someone that was evacuating him knew how to do their job.
You better preach, woman. You better listen. You better preach. Right now, she killing it. She won. She won diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, I want somebody that I can trust, who's depending on me to protect them, and I'm depending on and hopefully I can depend on you to protect me.
Knew how to do their job. That's what the military needs to be focusing on. So to have it about race just goes to show that maybe more members of across the aisle need to be serving in our military, because that's not something that we focus on. What we focus on is mission readiness. That's what it's all about. I don't care if you guys think that I'm racist. I'm a minority woman. Maybe I'm the wrong color of minority for you, but I'm a minority woman. I support this for those reasons because I've lost friends. Chairman, I yield my time.
The gentleman
Better preach, young lady. God dang it.
The woman's time has expired. Members are reminded to redirect their remarks to the chair. The gentleman.
I reserve, and I thank the chair for that acknowledgement.
Thank you. The gentlewoman from Virginia is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I yield 1 minute to Ms. Takuda.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's been said once already on this floor, but I don't think it can be said enough. If we ever needed a reason to support DEI training, you need look no further than the debates the antics that we have seen on this floor today, the childish, yes, actions that we have heard from the other side. In fact, from the backwards, racially insensitive comments spoken on this floor, it seems DEI training would be good right here in the halls of Congress. Chair, we have spent hours in markup already debating DEI, but apparently it wasn't enough. So here we are again, forced to debate yet another bad amendment. Never mind that 40% of our service members identify as members of minority groups, or that 42% of service members of color turn down assignments because of concerns about racism and discrimination that they have experienced. Never mind that almost half of all service members in a recent survey said they've been the subject of racial slurs or jokes in their communities. To say that we do not need DEI is to say racism and discrimination does not exist in our military and in our system.
That's not true. That's not true. You're talking real fast, but that's not true. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, that's not true at all. You don't need that in order for things to continue to move forward in a powerful way. Maybe she's saying something that I don't understand. I don't know. Maybe I'm not getting what she's saying, but based off what I understand her to be saying, I don't think it's true. All right. I don't even think that diversity, equity, and inclusion have to be is that big of a deal. I don't. Because diversity is not, it doesn't just fall on the color of somebody's skin or where you're from. I don't have the same understanding or beliefs or ideologies or care or love for the same things as people that look like me. And just because I see a couple people who look like me there don't mean that we're gonna, I'm gonna perform better because they're there and they're gonna perform better since I'm here. And I don't need anybody's help to get to where I'm going. Well, that's not true. Everybody need a community, but your community should be organic and it shouldn't be built off of the way someone looks or if they're from the same place. It shouldn't be.
Amendment to be proud of taking a meat cleaver to DEI flies in the face of all Americans and the diversity that we represent. What this reckless amendment and this obsession over DEI really exposes is a callous disregard for these service members and their experiences.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
They deserve better. America is better than this, and I strongly urge my colleagues to vote no.
I reserve.
The gentlewoman from Virginia reserves. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can answer the gentlelady's question. If her question is, when will we stop debating DEI? The answer is, when we get rid of DEI in the military. We will be here fighting this fight each and every day because what fashions itself as an inclusive ideology is in fact inherently divisive and harmful. And I acknowledge that we have many minorities that serve in our military and we are so grateful for their patriotism, but it's the very minority groups, it's the very minority service members in my district who come and complain about these initiatives. So this isn't an affront to our service members, it is something we are doing for our service members. And you know what they really complain about? A lot of this DEI training that takes away from their jumps, their live fire time, their time in the cockpit. We need to spend more time ensuring that we can protect the homeland and less time on pronoun training and the rest of this nonsense.
Thank you. Thank you. We out there fighting other people trying to preserve everything that we done built over here. And we worrying about pronouns. Before I shoot you, who do you identify as a he or her or him or she? Man, come on, man. Relax. We focus on dumbest things in the world, but people have received speeches from other people from people on the other side, and they believe that this is the most important thing that they can possibly come up with that can help us protect our republic, or as some people will say, democracy.
It's nonsense. I reserve.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentlewoman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much time do we have left?
The gentlewoman has 2.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this debate today demonstrates exactly why diversity, equity, and inclusion is necessary, not only in the military, but probably we need some training.
Y'all need training because y'all need training. Y'all don't need training because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Y'all need training because y'all simply need training as professionals. Y'all don't know how to communicate objectively from different points of views without getting all immature, period. That has nothing to do with DEI. That has something to do with your mindset. That has something to do with you being easily coerced into leading with your heart rather than your mind.
But I'm going to limit my remarks to the armed services. I want to break down what DEI training actually is, because most of the comments I've heard today is not an accurate definition of what DEI is. I'm going to take those words one at a time. Diversity training recognizes that and diversity efforts recognize we need to have a military, we need to have service members, we need to have an officer corps that reflects the diversity of the country that they protect. And for a wide variety of reasons, it doesn't. We need to recognize that our diversity is our strength and our unity is our power, but we can only have unity when we recognize and respect the diversity of this country and the people who serve.
I wonder if does she realize that people in other countries respected us more on the world stage, not because we had equal amount of blacks as we did equal amount of whites, as we did Asians, as we did Hispanics, as we did women, as we did. I mean, that wasn't the reason why we were so well respected. That wasn't the reason why nobody would mess with us. They weren't saying, no, we're going to back away from our red button because they are so diverse. No, I doubt that. And to even think that, that's foolish. They are so well diverse over there in the United States. They got more Asians over there now, so we need to put more Asians inside of the Army. They got more Hispanics over there now, so we definitely need more Hispanics in the Army, in armed forces. They got more women over there now. We need to put, and then we go into the military with our new identities. Now we can say that we're not this, that, and other. What y'all are doing is bringing about more confusion into armed forces. That's what y'all are doing, and nothing's being fixed that way. These are adults who come together every single day and debate real laws that could potentially affect our lives, and they are just immature as hell. It's ridiculous.
Equity recognizes that despite the fact the first casualty of the Revolutionary War was a black man, black men weren't allowed to serve in the military until the Civil War. And until 1948, the service was segregated, and black men, like my uncles, were not allowed combat duty. My uncles were only allowed to cook when they served during World War II. My uncles brought back home stories of the names they were called, of the threats they received, not from the enemy, but from their fellow service members. Their children and grandchildren who heard those stories didn't want to serve in a military that was unwelcoming to them. Inclusion means we are creating an atmosphere and a workplace that is inclusive of the full diversity of everyone who serves. Mr. Speaker, whether we like it or not, the history of this country is complicated. The history of this country is rooted in the original sin of slavery.
The history of this country is definitely complicated and is rooted in evil acts. There's a bunch of evil acts that took place, but diversity is happening. Equity, I don't know about equity, but equality is happening. Inclusivity is happening. It shouldn't be a law. That's when you start messing things up. Like, we need to have this amount of certain people. That's when it becomes an issue. It really is, man. It really is. And you're saying, yes, we're finally becoming this, and we're finally becoming that, and we're finally becoming that. You can become whatever you want as long as you go after it diligently. That's how I look at it.
Slavery and 100 years of Jim Crow, when Black Americans were treated as second citizens, if they were treated as citizens at all. We have to teach that history. And most of the amendments we have seen today have either tried to whitewash that history or ignore that it ever happened. We cannot do it. I urge the body to reject this amendment.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Florida.
So there y'all have it, man. What's y'all position on DEI? Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video. Love y'all. See y'all in the next one. Peace.